Got that New Orleans flair to it. It's a jazz show. Welcome everybody to Viada's Tiny House Village. I'm here with my partner and co-host Vauban, and we're going to give you some information today about tiny house law and location. And this is our intro music. Let us know what you think about it, and of
Hey,
course,
you know what? That music is choppy.
subscribe and click the like button to let us know what you're thinking. Okay, so that's our intro music, and we're going to have some pictures
You're
eventually.
you're in you're in the matrix.
I can't hear you.
You're in the matrix. The music is choppy.
Hold on. Okay, that's called retro soul.
Okay, it was choppy.
Oh,
It
okay. Well,
wasn't.
that's because it's on my iTunes. The next time we have it, it'll actually be in part of our video.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on Viada's Tiny House Village. My co-host is going to introduce himself, give you a little bit of his background, and then I'm going to introduce myself, and then we're going to give you so much information if you have a mind to go tiny or minimalist. And our goal over the next few weeks and years, if we hang in here long enough, will be to entertain you and inform you about how to go tiny, because we're both very experienced in this area, right? So, Vauban, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and all that?
Okay, well, I'm originally from Washington D.C. That's where I was born, and I went to college in Texas. But for the sake of this channel, I was introduced into renewable energy and minimalist living in Europe, particularly specifically Germany. So now I own a few acres of land in different places, but I'm physically right now, and uh, we want to teach people how to build their own sustainable housing. And when I say sustainable, that means housing where you don't have an electric bill, you don't have a water bill, and if you have a heating bill, it'll be like very minimal. But teaching people how to build their own, place without a bank or mortgage and things of that nature.
So my experience, thank you, Vauban. My experience is after a divorce, I decided I did not want to pay a ridiculous amount of rent after selling our 3,000 square foot house with the pool, the 2-car garage, and having to be on my own, and my two children are grown, 2 grown sons. I decided I don't want to pay this ridiculous amount of rent to live in a condo, a 2-bedroom condo. And so I started looking for other housing, as you would describe it. And I found a tiny house. I'd never really heard about a tiny house. This was in 2015. So we're talking 7 years ago. And so I found a tiny house for rent, and I called the lady. She said, "Sorry, it's already been rented." I said, "Well, do you know who built this and how I can find out how I can get my own tiny house?" So she gave me the name of a builder, Trekker Trailers. I contacted them, and they just happened to have an 8 by 20 tiny house that had been used for like 6 months, and they had it on their lot. I went to see it, and I'm like, "This is it. This is it." And I had money from the sale of my house, my 3,000 square foot house available. So I put a down payment on it. He added some shelves and some closet, and I moved in. And we're going to have pictures of that eventually on our intro page. I have someone, my media person, working on some pictures to show you what that house looked like, along with other parts of our journey that both Vauban and I have been on to be excited about tiny house living or minimalism. And I imagine many of you are wondering, well, what is a tiny house? Some of you may not even be familiar. Vauban, can you kind of define what you think a tiny house in 2022 is kind of looking like these days?
Well, different people have different ideas. There's no definitive answer, but I'll give my definition.
Okay.
A tiny house is no larger than 399 square feet. 399 square feet or smaller. 300 square feet, 250 square feet, 86 square feet, 120 square feet, anything under 399 square feet. 400 square feet and above to a certain degree is what I would call small housing. Like, from 400 square feet to like 900, 950 square feet, I would call that small. But tiny, 399, no more than that and below.
Now, there are so many people who would disagree with you because this tiny house movement, when it started, I think you'll agree, that was kind of the criteria or the standard. 399, that's a tiny house. But now people are building 400 square foot, 500, 600. Oh, it's a tiny house. Okay, we'll go along with that for now. It's smaller than a McMansion. Let's just put it that way, right?
Right. Oh, I need to add one more category metric to this. Not only if it's 399 square feet, but it should cost no more than $25,000.
Forget it. And you know it, you know as well as I do, people are spending huge amounts of
Over
money
$100,000. Yeah.
over what they call a tiny house.
Right.
We don't even have to debate that because it's whatever you feel is comfortable. And then they'll spruce up that tiny house to look like, what would you describe some of these houses, how they're designed?
Well, some are, some are chic. Some are chic, you can put them in GQ or whatever glamour magazine. Some are very upscale is the best word I can think of.
Yeah,
Some are
yeah.
very upscale. And I mean, if it's your house, you do what you want with it. It's your house.
So I applaud anyone who has made the decision to reduce the space that they live in, from having bedrooms that aren't used, bathrooms that aren't used, and so much more. I mean, I cleaned houses for
Right.
over 15 years, and I worked in some mansions where two people lived in these mansions, and they only used like half, not even half the house was used. So I'm applauding all of you who have become somewhat minimalist. Now, what's a minimalist? A minimalist is someone who has given up pretty much consumerism disease. We've got a disease out there called consumer, where people are buying, buying, buying. And if you've ever seen the TV show Hoarders, hoarders usually have things in their house with the price tag still on them, right?
Right.
And they're addicted to just shopping, and for sometimes very mental, emotional, psychological reasons, they have collected so much stuff in their house they can't even move in the house because it's so cluttered. So when you start thinking about minimalism, you are giving up that addiction to buying things all the time. You're recycling more. You're not eating as much either. We're going to talk about even eating, how you can reduce your eating and consumption of food in the future. But for today, we want to just give you a little bit of information about tiny house law and location. Because if you're even thinking about reducing the size of your house and living in a smaller place, there's some things you need to know about the law and finding the right location. So I'm going to let Vauban explain that to you, because he's really the authority and the expert on the law and how to find the right location.
Well, let's go with location. You're not going to, if you're in New York City, population 8 million plus people, Chicago, Illinois, over 3 million plus people, Los Angeles County, California, you're not going to find legal under zoning on code enforcement. You're not going to find tiny houses, or what we call tiny houses, legal in a uber big city. There are 19,500 municipalities in the United States. 10 of those municipalities have 1 million people or more. So you're not going to find anything like in a big city when it comes to being legal with tiny houses. Next thing is this. The term tiny house is looked upon in certain jurisdictions as a dirty word, because the word house, HOUSE, is regulated. So when a planning officer or zoning officer or a code enforcement person, when they hear house, it can be a tiny house, big house. Once they hear house, there's something on the books that's already regulated dealing with, to be legally called a house in that jurisdiction. It must be so many square feet, and it must have certain type of amenities, or fundamental amenities to it already. So try not to use the term tiny house when speaking to government officials in mid-sized to big towns, at least in the United States. All right. Now, with that in mind, the best places to be legal with a tiny house will be, number one, find a county with a with a tiny population. What's a tiny population for a county? Find a county that's got less than 25,000 people in a whole county. All right. Just 25,000 top. Then look for communities that have towns that have a population of no more than, I would say at the extreme, 2,500 people. The smaller the community, the better it is. The less people, the less rules and regulations, and the more freedom you have to be legal with your tiny home. Ideally, look for communities that have a population of 400 people or less. And there's a lot of them all throughout the United States.
So once you find the location, then you have to look into the laws about putting tiny house on that land, right?
Yeah, and if you look for towns that have a population of 400 people or less, they, in my experience so far, you basically can do what you want to do. But check with that, find out what's happening with the town. Because in a town that's got 300 people or less, no, 400 people or less, basically everybody knows everybody. You can be on a first name basis with the mayor there. And they'll let you know everything, whether you need a permit or not. And then if they say, no, you can do what you want to do, just to protect yourself, check with the county that town is in. If the county says it's cool or whatever, then you're in. So there are plenty of places like that in the United States. But if you're looking in a big city like a Columbus, Ohio, Orlando, Florida, New York City, Boston, LA, Seattle, forget it. Although there are rules like they do have in your larger cities. If you are if you own somebody's private land, then you can check on the books for an ADU. What does ADU stand for? Accessory dwelling unit. That's the municipal name in many jurisdictions for tiny house. They don't call it tiny house, but that's what some municipalities call it. ADU, that stands for accessory dwelling unit. And then they have the rules and regulations. If you meet those rules and regulations, which includes pulling the correct permits and having what they say done, you can be perfectly legal with your ADU, which is a de facto tiny house in those jurisdictions.
Yes. Now my experience so far, I had 5 years in my tiny house on wheels. Now I did it backwards. I wasn't looking for location first. I looked for a house first. So I bought my tiny house and I rented out that tiny house while I was still in my condo lease. In the meantime, my tiny house was moved to private property that had a septic hookup and water hookup. So my
Mhm.
renters lived in that on that land for about 8 months. And then when it was time for me to leave my condo and dwell and live in my tiny house, I had to find location, a piece of land. So I ended up, long story short, I ended up out in a semi-rural community outside of Orlando, Florida. Now,
Right.
when I say semi-rural, my neighbors on this was 11 acres of land that a man had developed a mobile home park, like or trailer home park. 11 acres of land with a lake, semi-rural. It was in a county outside, way hour away from Orlando, Florida. And there were cows on one side owned by the owner on that land and horses on the other side. So that's semi-rural. I strongly recommend you find a community like that. They're usually a little bit more relaxed and lenient. Now, the reason I was able to move my tiny house on that property, it was 11 acres of land with a permanent structure on the land. And what I'm finding
Okay.
recently, recently in my this year with my partner Carla, who Carla is part of the village that we're developing for tiny house living. And Carla bought the land and then later found out that in order to have the tiny house on that land, like LA said, there had to be a permanent structure. The tiny house was the accessory dwelling unit that got there first. But in this county that she's in, which is semi-rural because there's cows all around her, but the accessory dwelling unit is like the tiny house, right? That
Right.
that can't be there for that cannot be the established building structure
Oh,
first. It has
but
to
but
be.
in the case that you're talking about, the tiny house, which you lived in for 5 years, tiny houses are considered the kind that you have on wheels.
Yeah.
That's not considered real estate. That's considered personal property, which is a good
Okay.
thing. That's a good thing.
Right. So these are the things you need to be aware of if you're thinking of going smaller, tiny, minimalist. Is that look at number one, the location. What are their laws and about accessory dwelling units or whatever we call it? Because now my friend has to move this tiny house on wheels until she can build a permanent structure.
Now, let me ask you this: what is she's got? What, 2 acres of land?
2 acres, yeah.
All right, 2 acres. She's in a rural location, but what's it zoned?
It's zoned residential, I think. It's you know
Okay,
what's funny? Around her, it's zoned agriculture because there's cows around her.
right.
But the piece of property that she bought from the cow owner is residential.
All right.
So
Now, the so far, and the 4 acres that you've been on yourself, it's which is part of Viata's village. That 4 acres is zoned agricultural, and the reason why I wanted to get it zoned by something agricultural because you have more freedom to do what you want to do, particularly when it comes to tiny houses.
well, it depends on the county because
True.
the county that she's in, when she bought that land, it was cows on the land, and then the owner segregated the land or partitioned the land for her purchase, 5 lots on in
Right.
2 acres, so that each lot has to have a permanent structure, and then she can put a tiny house or whatever other names we want to call them on each lot. But there has to be a permanent structure like a container home. Now we're going to talk about container homes in the future,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the requirement and the law for a lot of counties, is that there has to be a permanent structure. But it doesn't mean you have to build a 3-story or a 2-story 5-bedroom house. You can build any type of shipping container, as long as it's permanent, as long as I guess it has septic and water and all the traditional plumbing
Right.
and stuff. So
Now that's there with her residentially zoned land. Like I said, my land is zoned agricultural, and
you mean
I'm
in
not putting out. Right, yeah. Now, if I wanted to put a house on there, it would have to be a minimum of 480 square feet. That's considered
Oh,
small to me, tiny to others. But I don't plan on putting any. I don't plan on ever building a house on it. You know, it'll be all temporary. Well, it'll personal property. So, but that's because that's what tiny houses are. As long as you don't have them on a permanent foundation, they're considered personal property, not real estate.
okay. So your land in northern Florida, you're able to put a tiny house on there without a permanent structure. Is that what you're saying?
All right, no. If I put a house on there, according to county rules, it's got to be a minimum of 480 square feet.
Oh, okay.
480 square feet. Now that's on a permanent foundation. I consider that small, but I'm not going to put any permanent buildings on there. We're just going to put um, a house. What is a house? It's a combination of a shed and a house. Okay. There's nothing written about it. It'll be a personal thing, personal property. I can move it on there. I can assemble it. I can live in it, and then when I leave, I can disassemble it, put it on the back of a U-Haul, and I don't have to worry about an empty cabin being there or nothing like that. So that's the way we're going to do that on that agriculturally zoned land.
And that's legal.
That's legal. And I found that all out before I purchased the property.
Okay, so that's the point we're trying to make here, is that you get as much information about the land and the location as to what that county requires in terms of housing, mobile homes, whatever. We want you to be totally aware of the process involved in minimalizing, being a minimalist, downsizing, and all the things you're wanting to do in this. 2022 is really a year to do this,
Right.
because we don't know what's going to happen with in America. Especially, we're here in Florida, both of us are in Florida in different locations, but I think all of us at this point are wondering, where is this country going? It's like,
All right.
so
Let's hold. We're live here. We've been on for what? How many minutes?
20
33.
25 minutes.
You want to wrap it up? You know,
Sure.
people's attention span.
So the sum of this is, we're going to be bringing you on Viada's Tiny House Village information, entertainment, and lots of good vibes for you to be motivated to become a minimalist or to just downsize and not be consuming everything that's advertised on the TV and in the media. Because I think that's what's causing a lot of people to be in depression and broke and not in a peaceful, joyful place, is because the advertising, the propaganda, and all the energy that comes at us is overwhelming some people. some people are just overwhelmed with all this media, negative news, and all that. So we want to help you come out of any type of low vibration, bring you information, and talk about traditions versus simplicity, addictions. LA has a building process he's going to share with you about how to build a house. If you don't want to buy one, then LA has the knowledge and experience to help you build a house. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And I am a holistic life coach. I'm going to be putting at the bottom of my YouTube video how you can contact me. I have an ebook that is available for $10, Downsizing into Joy from 30,000 Feet. And I wrote that after I moved into my tiny house for 5 years. I was in this very peaceful, tranquil place with cows and horses on either side. So I'm back to that place almost with this new village I'm working with. There's cows everywhere. So that's kind of a summary. We're going to wrap it up. LA or Vauban, you have any other words for our audience?
No, that's it. I think this a good one. We'll keep improving each one.
Yeah. So again, I'm gonna play our intro music. I don't know if you can hear it too well, but this is the music we're gonna be using for each show. This is and please don't forget to subscribe and click the like button on YouTube, because we want to grow an audience of tiny house villagers. You know how they say it takes a village to raise a child. We've got to raise a whole new generation of adults, and this new generation, younger generation. We want to feed this information that we're giving you here to them, so they can learn how to build houses. That's something that came up the other day, I think, on LA's show. LA has a blog talk show, It's My House. And how can people access that?
That's Monday through Friday, Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Call-in talk show number is 619-768-2945. Once again, 619-768-2945. And we'll give in future vlogs like we're doing now, we'll give information on if you're behind on your rent, mortgage payment, looking to make extra income, and hopefully we'll have offline workshops where we can all build together. So,
and like I said, we need to teach our children how to build houses and how to fix cars and all that. We're going to include all that in Viada's Tiny House Village. We're going to raise a whole new generation of skilled people. We're lacking in the area right now. So we want to help you in this YouTube channel to develop education for our children. So thank you so much for subscribing, and share this with those who might be interested in going tiny, because it's a very peaceful, simple, joy-filled life. So thank you, Vauban, for showing up. That's half the
yeah, I'm getting used to this. Okay.
And here's some closing music, Retro Soul. This is let us know how you like our intro music. Retro Soul. Can you hear the music?
Yeah, I can hear it. Okay, I'm a log out.